can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down She-Hulk number 8 by Rainbow Rowell and Takeshi Miyazawa. This most recent issue of She-Hulk I thought was really interesting because, well, while it doesn't have the titular character in it very much, it does actually take the time to explain two of She-Hulk's newest villains. Villains that we actually recently saw appear for the first time in She-Hulk number 5 just a few months ago, but characters by the name of Mark and April Booth. These are two characters who, when we were first introduced to them, they just kind of seemed like an oddball couple. While it seemed pretty obvious there was something up with them, we didn't really know the full scoop on them until just recently. When She-Hulk was first introduced to these characters, it was largely because Mark, who for all intents and purposes at the time looked like a normal human with the musculature of the Savage Hulk, as well as the mentality of the Savage Hulk, got into a fight with She-Hulk, and the only person who seemed to be able to calm him down was the character April, who otherwise looks like a normal human, except her head seemed 2 or 3 times bigger than what it should have been. And we never really knew exactly what was up with him. All we knew is that Mark had enough strength at his disposal that he could go toe-to-toe with She-Hulk and give her a run for her money. And Mark kind of just at first seemed to be just a normal human who just happened to have the mind of a child and just was really big and strong. That's kind of what it seemed like at first. But with that, we kind of had to just assume there was more to the story than that if he could go toe-to-toe with She-Hulk and make her sweat a little. And obviously there's clearly something wrong with April. Well, this issue tells us exactly what happened. In this issue, we discovered that April and Mark were both scientists who were trying to come up with a way to recreate some of science's greatest accidents. We kind of go back through yesteryear of all the different characters who are largely superpowered by way of some kind of a tragic scientific accident. Characters like the Hulk, Daredevil, even characters like Monica Rambeau. They're all characters who were a part of something that was an accident, and that is how they got their powers. And Mark and April's life mission has been to try and harness that, but make the accident happen on purpose. We've actually seen people attempt stuff like this in the past. I've actually talked about some of Marvel's villains from yesteryear, the UFOs, who are very similar. Characters who tried to recreate the process that created the Fantastic Four. And while it gave them superpowers, it didn't really quite go the way they wanted. And that's kind of what this comic is all about. It's about characters trying to get what they want and, quotey fingers, wishing on a monkey's paw, getting what you want, but it not really being exactly the way you hoped. Whereas Mark and April both, they decided to use gamma radiation as a surefire method to guarantee they got superpowers, because if it worked for Bruce Banner, why wouldn't it work for them? It's also worked for other characters who are kind of in Hulk's orbit, so yeah, it just kind of seemed like that was going to yield them the best results. And what ends up happening is that while they do try to manipulate gamma radiation to give themselves superpowers on purpose, what ultimately winds up happening is that Mark actually turns into, for all intents and purposes, a Savage Hulk. He has massive muscles, but also a very tiny brain to match. He can't keep up with things. Even though he was a scientist before, his mentality might even actually be more regressed than the Savage Hulk himself. And April, while she didn't gain super strength, she gained something more akin to Samuel Stearns, aka the Leader. As her head has grown in size, so too have her brain functions. And now she's become even more intelligent than she already was, but this also comes with some defects. The fact that she can't really keep up with how fast her brain moves sometimes. It just processes information way too quick, even for her. Both of them now have superpowers that they don't really have a full grasp on, and this is largely because they don't really understand how their powers work, but also because, yeah, they just went about this the wrong way. They tried to become Hulks, and technically, they did succeed at first. They actually did both turn into Hulks, but then immediately transformed into something else. And what we learned in this is that during She-Hulk number 2, we discovered that there was someone out there who had released Jack of Hearts. When Jack of Hearts, the former Avenger who has always kind of had a weird history with She-Hulk ever since their Avengers days together, when Jack of Hearts reappeared in She-Hulk number 1 under Rainbow Rowell, there was a situation where it was kind of left up in the air as to how he came back. He was supposed to be dead, but apparently he somehow had been alive for quite a while, but he was really foggy on the details of how he came back. And then in She-Hulk number 2, we discovered that there was some ominous person that was hiding out somewhere that had some kind of a secret laboratory that somehow Jack of Hearts had been trapped in and had escaped from, but he still has no memory of it. And we learned in the previous issue of She-Hulk number 7 when Shulky just on a whim decided to go check in on April and Mark. April kind of acts standoffish when She-Hulk wants to come inside her home and check on Mark. Ultimately, she lets She-Hulk in, but it's at this moment it's revealed that She-Hulk has stumbled into a trap, where this time when she encounters Mark looks more like a Hulk than he previously had before. But he had relatively normal Caucasian skin, but now his skin is more of a pale green, and this kind of implies he's more powerful than he was before, and they're able to subdue She-Hulk and put power dampeners on her, and they throw her down into the very same basement we saw at the end of She-Hulk number 2 that it was heavily implied where Jack of Hearts was being held captive before he reconnected with She-Hulk. And we knew from that moment that whoever it was that had Jack of Hearts captive, they had been keeping tabs on She-Hulk, and this issue confirms why. The reason why Jack of Hearts and She-Hulk have been so intrinsically linked to one another as of late is because they are part of Mark and April's plan. You see, Mark doesn't want to be what he is anymore. He hates being who he is now because his mind is just so fractured and broken now, and April thinks that she can fix them both, and the way to do it is to use She-Hulk's gamma radiation because they believe because She-Hulk can control her transformations and maintain the same or similar levels of power as the Hulk himself, they believe she's the key. And even if she isn't, they also want to use Jack of Hearts because he has the ability to siphon radiation. So one way or the other, they can get the best of both worlds. They can use Jack of Hearts to siphon the radiation out of She-Hulk and give it to themselves. Whatever is the case, they also have some kind of energy trapped inside of another vat, which very likely is something related to Jack of Hearts himself. Either way, She-Hulk is the perfect vessel to get everything that they want. If they can use Jack of Hearts, manipulate him in some way to steal Jennifer's radiation, they can use it to fix the mutation that has turned them into less than what they desire to become. This is almost shot for shot, word for word, what we saw the character Todd try to do to She-Hulk in the She-Hulk Attorney at Law Disney Plus series. Stealing Jennifer Walters' powers and thinking that synthesizing her genetics and trying to inject that genetic material into yourself to turn yourself into a Hulk, thinking that because she can control it, that means you can control it. That is the downfall of many a different supervillain. And even when it does work, it never has the desired results. Hence, why it didn't work in the first place when they tried to manipulate gamma radiation to become a Hulks. It worked for like 2 seconds, and then they turned into hideous monsters, or at the very least, abnormal looking people. To the point where Mark doesn't even want to be a Hulk anymore. He just wants to be turned back to normal, and April is going out of her way to try and make it right. I don't think this is going to work. I think if anything, they're just going to make matters worse for themselves by taking Jennifer's blood and trying to use her as a means to control their Hulk transformations. I could easily see this resulting in death because Jennifer Walters' genetics are unique. She is also a very different person. The reason why she is able to control the She-Hulk within herself, whereas Bruce normally can't, because she doesn't have decades worth of child abuse hampering her mental state. Not to mention she has far superior anger management skills compared to her cousin Bruce. That is why she's able to control her Hulk transformations. It doesn't have anything really to do with her actual genetics. Hence why this plan is doomed to fail. But who knows, maybe it might succeed all the same, but I still don't think that Mark and April Booth are gonna get what they want. I think if anything else, it's just gonna turn them into more super villainy super villains. But anyways, that's everything I want to talk about with She-Hulk number 8. If you want to know more about She-Hulk as a character, check out these videos right here, and in the meantime, let me know what you thought about She-Hulk number 8. Keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.